the first matchup that we're going to see, of course, that being GaRpY versus dandaking. I'm going to start with you. Dan, talk to me a little bit about GaRpY.
Yeah, we were just reminiscing moments before broadcast about the history that is GaRpY. He's been in the scene for 24 years. You know, he won, what was it, the Half-Life World Championship back in 1998, and he's still sitting here as the boomer he is. But he's also a Quake Champions champion. He's been, you know, winner of ESWC, as he so politely reminded me before broadcast when I was saying he wasn't going to win.
Second in Denver. Second in Denver.
He did remind me of all these facts. I have to make it clear how good he is. But he is a great player. No matter how many times he gets beaten down, he's always back here. He's always challenging. And despite how good he is, I think, and despite his pedigree, I think the one thing he does struggle with is mental games sometimes. You can see him slipping. In practice, he can beat anyone, but whether he always transitions out to the main stage is another question. And often we see him drop out in the first round. Maybe he gets a little bit further in the bracket and doesn't get much further. This could be an event where he pushes a little bit further on. He's got a very strong opponent against him. I want him to do well, obviously. He's got the talent, so let's see how he does.
Gotcha.
I feel pretty much the exact same way about GaRpY. I'm a very biased fan, you know, lovely lad. But it is that experience that GaRpY tends to bring above most people, because even for Quake, there's not a lot of players out there right now in QC that have that degree of experience, not only with a bunch of different games, so the ability to kind of adapt and deal with new opponents on the fly, but just this kind of setting. I mean, being able to sit down on a stage, it's LAN, it's stressful for a lot of people. GaRpY's just not going to have that concern. And as we said earlier, you know, there are players here where this is their first experience doing this ever. So anyone that's ready has an advantage, for sure.
And his opponent, and keep in mind, you're going to be seeing some new, fresh faces here over the course of the weekend, right? A lot of players battling it out through those challenger competitions to earn their spot to play here at the Season 3 World Championship. And this is one of them, dandaking. And Ketchup, I'm going to go to you first, talk a little bit about this player, but because you mentioned, right, we could see some unique things this weekend. We could see someone come in and surprise a lot of folks out there. But what are your thoughts here on dandaking?
Now, if you got into Quake Champions kind of through the Pro League, you probably haven't seen him all that much. But if you were sort of invested in this game really from day one in those first couple of years, kind of before things started to shift and we started to see different modes and all that stuff, dandaking was always there. And it's had its fair share of like highly respectable results in this kind of setting as well. So, you know, talking about experience versus experience, I don't think that's going to be an issue for dandaking at all, because he's done pretty well for himself in Quake Champions too. It's just that the Pro League in particular, we just wouldn't have seen him all that much. So if this is your debut, welcome to dandaking.
Pretty much, yeah. And he's been around even before Quake Champions, so somebody with a lot of heritage as well. And he comes from the land down under, so who knows what he brings with him. And he's sitting down backstage. He has been giving upsets once again. These players who are not used to playing against these alternative playstyles, as you will, right? He brings a new meta slightly with him and a new skill set. And don't underestimate how accustomed players can be with their regular practice partners and with the QPL, that everyone plays against everyone so often. So this new blood coming in can always have some degree of an upset.
I love it. Forget what you know. Well, maybe some of it, right? I think a lot of it might apply this weekend, but you're absolutely right. A lot of potential to see something, or players to go up against a player that maybe they're not used to playing or not accustomed to quite yet. So let's take a look at the picks and bans and see how this first matchup is going to be playing out. As there we have our maps: Corrupted Keep, Awoken, and if we need to go there, we'll be heading on over to Ruins as well. Dan, let's start with you. Any thoughts here on the champion picks that we see?
No, I think particularly early stage tournaments, people love to play it a little bit safe, and you know, as it is in events, the meta will unfold as the event grows on for the surprises coming through. So there is nothing massively here that stands out. Probably the most definitive one is no heavy champions, and that's partly what we'll talk about throughout the day. I think people will be steering away from that for the moment just because of this land setting. So nothing too dramatic. I think the one I'm looking out for is that Awoken, where the Nyx comes out, which we know is a bit of an enigma. She can definitely dominate, but at the same time, I really do like the Strog pick there. That can put a lot of pressure on and is tanky in his own right. So that's probably the key matchup I'm going to look out for.
I'm kind of looking at the bans too. The safety doesn't extend just to the picks here because you know,
Right.
we're going into Awoken, we're going into Ruins, and because of that, we're saying goodbye to Athena, we're saying goodbye to Visor, and even the Scale Bearer being removed at the moment. There's actually one particular element of Scale Bearer which we might see throughout this weekend is that more than one player for sure have been saying they don't feel like Scale Bearer feels as strong on LAN. Now, for what reason that could be, who knows? There's many potentials here, but a lot of it comes down to just having that extra little bit of time to deal with the bull rush. And I mean, we're on LAN. Heavy champions are easier to hit. Now, we're not going to need to talk about that right now, because obviously, as you said, there's no heavies here and Scale Bearers banned anyway. But I'm keeping a real keen eye on that development here, because everything else is nice and standard.
Well, clearly people are starting to listen to me after the last 2 years of my...
Did you look into a crystal ball and be like, we're going to go on LAN, and it's going to be easier to deal with?
No, I definitely look forward to seeing how different champion play is going to play out here on LAN, because I do think it might mix up a little bit, and we'll see, right? It might be really in the head of a lot of players, right? And they have been playing pretty consistently online for a bit. You kind of get in a mode, a certain way of playing. How does that shift to LAN? I don't know, but as you said, we'll see it play out, right? All right, well, there's your picks and bans. Make your predictions in chat. We're getting ready to kick off our first game here of day one of the Quake World Championships. It looks like both players are in the lobby. And gentlemen, any final thoughts here as we get ready to fire into game number one?
I can't wait. We're back. I'm loving it. It's so hype here at the event, and I'm really looking forward to it.
The exact same. I'm just happy to be around everyone again. We're in this setting where everyone's going to be able to give it that 150%. Plenty of players, if they're not from EU, have been sort of boot camping here to get that extra experience and that extra practice. And the sort of newcomers that we're seeing, they spent a long amount of time yesterday on their personal booths just getting as many games in on LAN as they possibly can. So I think people could not be more prepared for this weekend, which could very well give us the best Quake champions we've ever seen.
Dan, anything else to add? Or are you just going to stand there looking pretty?
I can do both, actually. I can definitely do both.
I mean, one thing to bring up is just, again, keep an eye out for those challenger players,
Yes.
right? I think you can expect that at least one or two of them are going to kind of maybe shock the world.
Yeah.
And maybe not. I don't know. We'll be seeing. But it looks like we're loading into our first map, Corrupt to Keep. I'm going to let you gentlemen take it from here as we kick off the first map of day one of the Quake World Championship. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm that excited.
Contain it, we contain it.
Let's go.
Thank you. We are jumping in. We've got the warm-up here, catch up. What's your feeling then? I know we haven't seen a lot of dandaking over the weeks. He kind of came in through the challenges, 300 ping to get here, but he is here. What's your gut telling you?
I think dandaking is going to have to really do everything he can to just make the most of this because, if I'm not mistaken, dandaking actually had a rather unfortunate flight here and was quite under the weather.
Oh, dear. I did not know that.
Well, I could be totally wrong, but I'm sure I heard it. I'm sure I did. But either way, you know, now you're here, you're nice and rested, hopefully you got some food in you, and we're now jumping into this first map. But remember, folks, you know, unlike those weeklies where it's 3 maps, regardless, we're in best of 3. You know, this could be over considerably faster.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see how things unfold. Again, we've been backstage, we've been talking to players about the meta and everything else. HMG coming out early for the first initiation kill. So interested to see how, you know, the dynamics of the duel changes, because the Rockets we've been cited as being extremely powerful in this environment. And the LG potentially not so much. But dandaking does take that first frag. Looking very confident. Got a trap set up here for the Anarchy, who himself doesn't have the inject. Got it with a super shotgun catch-up, and it's not worked out.
It's the risk-reward of the super shotgun sometimes. You know, the amount of damage you can get is great at close range, but you miss that shot. I mean, just like a rail, you are out on your ass. But now, 1 frag apiece here. We've only just started this first map, and it's still that kind of feeling each other out period. I think it's highly unlikely that players that know they have opponents in their path, I mean, they're not going to give them those practice games, are they? These players will be fighting each other on this LAN for the first time in years in these first matches. So these kind of first maps, like I said, just figuring out maybe potential patterns, potential weaknesses, but as it's best of 3, not a lot of time to get your head together.
No, dandaking taking the high ground. Big rocket coming out from GaRpY from the low ground right there, smacking him in the face. He's going to back off to the heavy, but GaRpY's got more than enough time to get across and keep this pressure on. Don't think dandaking knows exactly when it is. He drops into a shotgun. Actually just just about gets out alive for now, but not for long, as he is taken down. GaRpY taking the lead, and that delay on the heavy earlier was critical for GaRpY's success.
Yeah, and being able to just sort of collect it at the last minute is going to be the best of a bad situation, really. I mean, especially with those misses at the end. You kind of know you're going to go down. That rocket was absolutely fantastic, though. Again, stealing an item. So GaRpY getting tons of damage, and yeah, technically in the lead, but not able to really establish any of these items yet.
Not again!
Oh, that LG is just not the one right now.
No, and I don't know if that's a sign of things to come, but GaRpY's close-range shotgun have been on point so far. As you rightly said, though, the stealing from dandaking is a little bit concerning for GaRpY fans out there, as he's been a slightly bit sloppy around those major items. Saying that, dandaking is making good presence and had solid positioning up on this high ground, going toe-to-toe again. GaRpY is more than enough and healthy enough to continue with this fight, and will back on off to try and reclaim this next heavy rotation.
No, it could be down to just not being able to pick up the right weapons for the job throughout the course of the map. I mean, sometimes on keep, you really do have to make a bit of a choice here. And again, a bit of a messy play on these items.
Yeah, definitely felt GaRpY had the time and the remit to push that high ground, and not doing so. He's given a license for dandaking to control that space and ultimately steal away the heavy, which he had no right to do. Can he continue that momentum, though? The heavy machine gun mid-range play has been strong from both players, and as you can see, even despite that mega pickup, not particularly healthy. The orb is coming back off cooldown now, so he just will rotate around, and GaRpY's respecting that and forfeits the heavy for free.
There's no rush to make big things happen just yet. You know, it's only 3.5 minutes down on this first map. Wow, just a drive-by there with the shotgun, and bonus points able to pick up a light. And I guess light being the key word here is that GaRpY playing a champion that's not going to spawn with any. Dandaking's going to be much healthier fresh off the spawn, whether that comes down to a refrag, being able to establish on an item. And the second you frag someone and take armor on the way, you can just push it. You know, if they get a spawn that's not near one of the big weapons, super shotgun again, saying hello. And just like that, dandaking takes a small lead here.
Definitely. It's a little bit worrying how GaRpY is completely forfeiting the items. At the same time, he is controlling the mid-ground really, really well. He stuck around a little bit too long. He did nearly 200 damage with the heavy machine gun pulling out there, but dandaking is not relenting. And as you can see in these events, often they start cagey, but not in this one. Absolute aggression from both sides in this. Too much aggression from GaRpY this time, and dandaking is punishing. As earlier engagements, he wasn't connecting the lightning gun are well behind him, as he is being clean on these frags. As they're saying that, GaRpY's going on the offensive and will get another frag to bring it within 2. We're not even 5 minutes in this, though, Ketchup.
I really want to point out that a couple of frags ago that dandaking was able to obtain, there was so much confidence in that fight that he does that super shotgun damage and doesn't even hesitate to realize what direction GaRpY is going to run away, because he's just so confident, and that's a real shame. That's a shame right there.
Yeah, it's just the timing again, and this has been a big thing. The kind of first 2 minutes or so, GaRpY was on point, but ever since then, dandaking's rotation has been spot on. The timing's been great, and he's understanding now his remit and how much he can push. And he's punishing GaRpY for any mistakes over and around the items. And as you can see, he's got that control, and GaRpY's on the run here. He's used the inject just to gain any sort of stack to get around the map and try and set up for this next mega, but he's just not going to be able to. Trying to get some chip damage, trying to drop down below. You see him working his angles, but there's just nothing there that dandaking's giving him.
Bit of an expensive sequence of those items there for GaRpY, using the inject just to kind of safely get out of a bad situation and try and pick up some weapons, but it's not going to help him take any of these items, as now dandaking, absolutely a blood in the water situation. Plenty of stack, way more than GaRpY's working on. GaRpY really stuck trying to run away. There's the safety orb, just why not in that situation? And dandaking's looking really good here, and just knows GaRpY's going to make his presence known here on the Mega. But the timing's so good that who cares? Yeah, I'll take the damage, because I'm going to pick up this Mega. What are you going to do? You just spawned. All you've got is a machine gun. I don't care about that.
Again, it's all the right play, but just the wrong timing. Every single one was been within the 0.5 of a second of the item pickup. So GaRpY has now got himself that armor, but needs to sustain some momentum, because we're at that point of the game where he is nearly at the point of no return. 3.5 minutes to go. Well, the scoreline isn't huge, but any slip-ups, and it could very much be unreachable at that point. So he needs to be clinical now for the next few minutes.
Harder to snowball when you're a light champion versus someone that's not. You got to get those. We always say you got to get those clean frags to start the snowball.
There it is.
If you don't have any health, that becomes a lot harder. However, in that case, kind of exactly what you needed. Because now look at that stack difference of which GaRpY can push in and be aggressive. Knows that dandaking, again, has just spawned, so that rocket launcher was good as it was going to get. That kind of bonus rocket before death, I definitely think GaRpY would have rather have got a frag that didn't involve that, perhaps. However, here we go again as dandaking, able to pick this one up and has set himself up quite nicely. The rocket launcher's in play, plenty of stack, timing on the heavy and positioning too. It looks like GaRpY's not going to have an inject ready for this.
Oh, he burnt it on the last rotation. And dandaking's style is very offensive, very aggressive, plus forward. And GaRpY has not been respecting it as much as he probably should have. A lot of these moves have been good from GaRpY on the defensive. dandaking's aggression has meant he's burnt a lot of his stack, but just done enough to get the frag and convert it into a full rotation and restack. And now you can see GaRpY's in two minds. With 2.5 minutes to go, he cannot afford to give up any more frags, any more of that snowball. And so he's just trying to stabilize, just trying to get a position and in to try and force himself back into this map. But dandaking is playing extremely well. Another delay onto that heavy is going to offset any sort of pressure from GaRpY. It will also be continuing on this offensive at the range, trying to keep GaRpY low so he can't pressure the next Mega. At the same time, dandaking does not want to go aggressive, but he has an orb with a huge rocket. He knows he can go in. He's just waiting and doubling back. GaRpY's snuck in below. Will get this Mega, but at what cost? Can he even get out catch up?
I'm not particularly convinced he can. The inject's been popped, but I mean, it's already run out. And just like that, dandaking's going to be sitting on the heavy. There's no way at all GaRpY can fight for this. And dandaking just did the smart thing. I mean, there's a light nearby. I know that GaRpY's not going to go for this heavy, so where's he most likely to be? And was exactly bang on the money there. With a minute and a half left to go, 3 frags. Doable on Corrupted Keep, being it's such a small and aggressive map, sure. But again, GaRpY's going to have to, well, as he has been this whole try, he's trying to set up for that one sort of big moment to sort of steal away those frags that he so desperately needs. But easier said than done when your opponent's got all the weapons, all the damage, all the stack. Even now, GaRpY, you've just spawned. You've got to take some time to get some weapons so you can actually fight this and keep the fight rolling. Looks to me now that all he had was a rocket, and from that range, you can't do anything. And to be honest with you, willing to call this first map a GG.
Definitely. Really well played by dandaking.
It
It was messy.
Hello.
It was definitely messy to start with. Some unfortunate frags going both ways, but then some timing mishaps from GaRpY. dandaking did not relent with the pressure. His timing was on point and he punished the mistakes, and that's what you've got to do at this level. If you do the basics well, you keep that rotation strong, you hit your shots, you're always going to be in with the chance, and that is exactly what dandaking did. And as soon as he had that lead, he kept the pressure strong, but he managed that aggression. He was chipping away at GaRpY, keeping him on the back foot and maintaining that rotation. So it was really, really well played. I think it was definitely a bit of a nerves in that opening few minutes from both players, more from dandaking, but as soon as he got that lead, there was really no looking back for the Australian.
It was kind of showing through the course of the LG alone, I think. Those first few fights where the LG was being used almost by muscle memory and just really not hitting anywhere near as much of it as clearly dandaking knows they can do. But here's the important thing as we close out this map and we kind of had those bonus moments of, yeah, the map's done and we're just going to roll out the remaining few minutes because, you know, you may as well. Even things like the LG, the rockets, the shotgun, it started to get a little bit crisper to the point where you've already won the map and now you've got those extra couple of minutes to just warm up.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of makes me a bit worried going into the next map, to be honest.
Absolutely, and you can see the decision-making going in line with that process as well. It was quite sloppy. It was all in to start with from Dan, and then as that lead began to build, as he fully understood the rotation, had an understanding of what GaRpY was doing, he began to manage that aggression better, and the frags became cleaner, the pressure became more sufficient, sustained, and it was really hard as an Anarchy in those situations to get back into the map. When your opponent's keeping you on the back foot, keeping up with you in the tempo-wise, your injects are really just restoring you an escape at that point, you know? And so it was hard for GaRpY, but a lot of it comes back down to the first 3 minutes, just small timing errors. If they didn't happen, absolutely would have been a different game. But they did, and now he's down a map.
The thing to think about too is that was Anarchy the right choice? I'm not particularly convinced that Anarchy gave GaRpY everything that he would have needed. I mean, we have the wonder of hindsight, right? We can see how the map went and go, well, okay, so now we know that this, that, and this happened. Perhaps maybe a medium champion would have been a little bit better because you would have had extra padding for a mistake. You know, less punishment when you get fragged, and now you can try and establish yourself, and you've actually got a little bit of armor to work with. Obviously, we can't know all these things until the map is finished, but I guess it brings across the risk attached to using a champion that just doesn't have any kind of padding whatsoever. The second dandaking started to get comfortable. It was a very, very different map indeed. Now, our second map, we are going to sort of go in the opposite direction. The light versus medium applies, but now it's GaRpY with the Strog, and it's going to be dandaking with the Nyx.
Yeah, this was my question. What I was thinking just now is how is dandaking going to change his style, if at all, going into this matchup? Because he was obviously offensive, using that stack, as you say, using the speed of the Ranger and the Orb to close the gap. We also got the rail in play, which is going to be critical because a lot of the players have been saying how important the rail has been in practice. We're in this LAN environment where it's so much more responsive, so much crisper. That can be punishing both ways. The Nyx can obviously use her skill set to get in the right positions to use the rail, but if you begin to strength against rails against a Nyx, she becomes very vulnerable. And so there will be a bit of a definite change in strategy for Dan, whereas GaRpY, on the other hand, can now play with the speed, and that's where he had it in the first map, but as you said, he didn't have the stack to follow it up. Strog is really good on this map at continually bullying their opponents, and so GaRpY needs to do that.
It's where the mobility has its different levels, I suppose. I mean, dandaking with the Nyx. Nyx known as being one of the more mobile champions on this map. Pretty much exactly the same as a Doomslayer because the double jump.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, technically Nyx gets a wall jump, but on this map there's so many walls, it's a double jump. I mean, like, if you're in a position to use it, it's going to be possible because there's so much stuff nearby. So you're going to be able to sort of manage that mid-ground and go from point A to point B. The question is, when it's time to escape, that's where the chase is on, right? That's where Strog can be so dangerous because now you've taken damage, you want to back up, and just before you know it, it's either going to be a peeker out of nowhere or just that nice, good old-fashioned crouch slide round a corner. So there's going to be a lot of pressure needing to be put on, and hopefully GaRpY can keep his head in the game. You know, it wasn't the cleanest of first maps, but now you've got that extra sort of buffer because you've got a bit more stack to work with, and if he's able to hit those important shots, as you said before, you know, we've been talking to quite a few players this weekend, and right now in this LAN environment, a lot of people are saying Rocket and Rail. They're the two. They're the two that you want to make sure are on point for this weekend.
So definitely, I think we're going to see a much more different map now and tempo from Dan. GaRpY, though, for me, he has to play very similar to how Dan played in that map one. Keep the tempo high, keep the aggression high, use the hit scan well, keep that Nyx on the back foot. If you can do that, she becomes vulnerable. You get to dictate the terms of the game, and that's where you want to be. If you let the Nyx take the front foot, get that rail, control that T-junction, then it becomes hell to play against her. So let's see how this one unfolds. Starting over on GaRpY, picking up that Mega. Actually leaves the rail to double back towards the light and towards the LG. Doesn't have any weapons yet. dandaking come flying in with some rockets. Could this be a huge mistake from GaRpY? No! dandaking has got him low, but not confident enough to finish him off. He's still standing there trying to spam it. He doesn't know how low he is, though, Ketchup.
God, again, master of hindsight, but if there was any weapon
there he is, though.
Any weapon whatsoever in that double back would have been a wonderful choice, because I was watching that through dandaking's point of view. He was not ready for GaRpY to be there at all. But the lack of weapons just meant, oh, okay, I'll go and fight this then. You got a machine gun? Brilliant. Now the aggressive Ghost Walk GaRpY, get out of there. Get out of there! And then he just managed to escape just slightly. But GaRpY left kind of licking his wounds. And we have to talk about the fact that dandaking, we've only just started this map, but the control of the map is there. We'll know both of the items and kind of controlling that all-important middle ground. The Rocket, LG, and Rail all good to go. Even bonus points there for the SSG. dandaking kind of has everything you need to do well on Awoken, but right round the corner as GaRpY decides to steal that away. And that, ooh, that Rail hurts too. Where do we go from here? The heavy's in play, and can dandaking even fight for this? Oh, never mind!
Nice push by GaRpY, and this is where the aggression from Nyx comes back to haunt her if she doesn't convert, and she didn't, but he's caught GaRpY on the stairs, couldn't move, he's got him extremely low, and there's no items up for a good 15 seconds. So GaRpY going to be on the back foot here, he's got the hit scan, he's got the long range weapons. dandaking's only got the rail to work with, and he's going to stick around trying to hit one, but this is greedy, he's got no Ghost Walk catch up, he's going to be sticking around once again. GaRpY doesn't connect, so he gets out with his life, but you can see how dandaking wants to play. It's high risk and high reward, but at this moment in time, the reward is just not coming.
Even that mega fight was something GaRpY was happy to take. Yeah. With the amount of armor that was in the tank, I mean, yeah, I'll take this rail. I'm still going to pick up this mega, and I'm still probably going to chase you afterwards. Now in this case, oh, misses the rail on the Pika, and that Kamikaze does a lot of damage. Enough so to light the green light for GaRpY to push forward and get a little bit more pressure established. Now this Mega just about to spawn for another time. Next objective's gonna be that heavy, and it feels like in a short space of that time, GaRpY's been able to force dandaking off the map into a point where you just don't have as much room to work with. Thankfully, this Ghost Walk will give some kind of opening, and if GaRpY isn't aware, which it kind of looked like maybe not so much, 2 bonus rockets is going to do a great job of dandaking, nullifying both of those items that were picked up, and actually looking at things in position for Mega. That was a really good use of Ghost Walk there from Dan.
100%, and this is exactly where you want to be as a Nyx. You don't even need to control the map. You need to get that basic starting scac. You need to have your Ghost Walk available, and at that point, if you can get the positioning, that's where you become dangerous. And dandaking used that leverage to its maximum effectiveness to regain that frag, because he was in a terrible position leading up to that point. GaRpY has to be more careful in general in keeping track of where his opponent's playing. Nice rail coming out. Once again, as just gets the Ghost Walk up in time, and GaRpY has to keep on the aggression here. He's got all of the items to work with, and so that extra padding, an extra level of fat to defend him, and dandaking is out of that rail.
GaRpY is going to prioritize Mega for sure. I'm waiting for Mega to appear. I'm still going to go down that little turn there, just in case she's trying to pick up one of those lights. And dandaking caught off guard by another opening rail, but only just able to pick up 5 himself. So these are going to be quite finite going into the rest of this map at the moment. dandaking continues to be low, but it has come down to that Ghost Walk usage so far. GaRpY's doing a great job of cycling around the map. Here comes the Mega, and for another time, dandaking's just trying to find that opportunistic rocket. And now, pushing forward, this is a scary, scary push to make. Yeah, you've nullified a bit of the Mega, but dandaking's still pretty tender.
Yeah, and now GaRpY's being slightly more aggressive, tracking down his opponent. And with the full rotation of items he can afford to be, he knows there's no Ghost Walk up as well, so this will be another easy frag. And this is the moment we were talking about where Nyx is vulnerable. Yes, she can play defensive, but if that Ghost Walk's on cooldown, particularly if you get fragged, if you get found, you're dead. And that's exactly what GaRpY's done. He's converted twice now off the spawn, and that's been the totality of his lead. So just needs to keep that momentum high. He's done a good job as well in boiling out the Ghost Walk. dandaking needs to reflect on this, because at the moment, he's not been hitting enough rails to play as defensive as he is. And he's used the Ghost Walk aggressively. He's got the timing, but GaRpY's responding in kind. Good damage coming out from both sides. And there's the conversion rail catch up. 6-2, 5 minutes into this game.
GaRpY's been rather good, I think I'd say, at using that kind of famous Strogan Pika maneuver. You know, for those that maybe on the off chance someone hasn't watched a lot of Quake Champions recently, that Pika, that sort of controlled drone, one of the greatest uses in Duel is to force it around a corner. You know the opponent's going to rail it, so in between rail cooldown, you just get a free shot. And you know you're not going to get shot because it's on cooldown.
Yeah. The one thing I'm seeing from Dan's playstyle is that it doesn't really suit a Nyx. He's trying to assert himself in some of these engagements without the stack or utility to do so. Definitely needs to play slightly more reserved, force his way into these games.
There's one thing GaRpY's always been happy to do, pretty much in any of the FPS he's played. It's throw down when the opportunity calls for it. So there are other elements that can sometimes fall apart for him, but when he needs to fight, he'll fight. Which is why when you take these kind of champions that have good mobility, good opportunity to set up angles, I mean, that's one thing GaRpY's done a great job of so far, is just using that speed of the crouch slide to put himself in position, get a lot of surprise opening rails on dandaking, and then from that, it's kind of history.
Really nice defensive play from GaRpY there, backing off, using the Pika, keeping dandaking on the defensive, not allowing him up that jump pad. He's stolen away the Mega, connecting with the damage as well. Dan is even sticking around for this engagement. He is greedy in some of these fights, but he gets out with his life for now. But what he's done is he's opened the door for GaRpY to keep the pressure on to this next heavy. He does use the Ghost Walk so perfectly from the shadows, connects with the rail off the spawn as well. GaRpY's weak, and Dan steals away the heavy. So, once again, high risk, high reward catch-up, but this time the reward is there. And Dan is slowly getting himself back into this game and beginning to connect with these rails. Now, what he should be doing, just playing around this junction here, controlling the map, using the sound cues. And that's exactly what he wants to be doing.
It really doesn't get any cleaner than that. We talked about it on Corrupted keep the importance of getting those clean frags, especially if you are one of those lighter champions. dandaking is in a perfect position to do just that. The control over this map is locked in. Every item currently going into the favor. And the fact that a lot of these fights, there's not a lot of return damage. GaRpY going in for a risky peeker.
Yes.
One that was not worth it, as now dandaking's going to get that frag, pick up the Mega, and can start to continue the hunt once more. Knows that GaRpY's to the left. LG is all you're going to spawn with here. So is there going to be an element of being just a little bit more close range, a bit more aggressive? Ghost Walk is ready. I just still can't believe that one perfectly timed, almost a telefrag, but not quite, has allowed this entire sequence. And there's a absolute clutch back to 100 to 90. I mean, ouch. I don't think GaRpY's feeling too good about that one.
No, but the big,
oh God,
big defining moment is just Dan beginning to connect with these rails. That has been the critical thing. The first few minutes, he wasn't doing that. And so when he was pushing in, GaRpY was healthy. Now he's hitting these rails. He's forced GaRpY into the outskirts of the map, and he's been able to plant himself in that mid-ground, connect with the rails, and follow up with a conversion. It's been rinse and repeat, and GaRpY's not got the answer. It's 7-7, 2 minutes to go, but dandaking has the control. He has the momentum, and he has the timings. You can see GaRpY on the run. He doesn't take any damage, which is great for now, but there is absolutely no way into this room. The peak comes out just to get a smidgen of information. But GaRpY is on the ropes here with his life on the line in the upper bracket already on map 2.
There's not a massive demand for dandaking to push right now. You know, we've got to do is wait 13 seconds, maybe less if we can find an hourglass nearby. The second that Ghost Walk becomes available, and especially now, as we wait for the all-important game-changing ability, which we've clearly seen on this map, to come back. In the meantime, dandaking's doing good damage. dandaking's picking up all the items. This moment we're about to see could be where the map comes to a close.
Yeah, and I think he knows where GaRpY is as well. GaRpY's not been showing up to any of these items. Fortunately, he falls off. GaRpY just has to run away as the Ghost Walk comes out once again. Doesn't connect though, but this one does, and this is huge. The next heavy is his, and then he can go on the offensive. There's no Ghost Walks. It won't be maybe an all-out attack, but with the momentum, GaRpY has to show face. He has to do something. He can't keep letting these Knicks get away for free. But he is, once again, this fully stacked Knicks is on the patrol, picking up those time shards as well with 10 seconds to go in this Ghost Walk. Dance senses his moment is now, and he wants to end this map before the sudden death mark.
Has to safely pick up some rockets, though. Doing the right thing there for sure. GaRpY able to escape, but the absolute change of momentum. It was looking so good for GaRpY for the first half of this map, but as you quite rightly pointed out, dandaking just started hitting the key shots every time. Aggressive rocket, 33, not enough.
Oh,
however,
no.
Wait a minute. The self-damage on the rocket jump, the aggressive push, no damage. The peeker, I don't know about that one, and he manages to take him out. GaRpY, oh no! dandaking able to take full advantage of that. And just like that, in the closing few seconds, we have our first GG of this weekend.
We talk about experience, we talk about presence of mind, and, you know, coming into this event, there was obviously question marks over dandaking because nobody had really seen him up to this point, but someone was on the ropes for so much of that last game. That is what you call composure, and he fully deserves that victory. Map 1 was magnificent, but map 2 was even better. And Wheat, how are you feeling?
I mean, what a way to kick off the weekend, right? You were kind of commenting on it, Ketchup. You mentioned something earlier in terms of like GaRpY's start to that game, and I think what we noticed as we were watching it is that GaRpY's rails on the front, they were on point. And there was that first rail by dandaking when he came out of Ghost Walk and he had the shot lined up and missed it. And I think whatever was happening there, he was warming it up, he was getting it ready. You clearly saw that really started to take shape, take form, and you know, what an amazing way to kick off the tournament for him.
Look at the comeback that he had to make. But this right there was the turning point. That one reappear, and then the pressure. From that point on, the moment GaRpY got hit by that, I'm going to call it a telefrag, even though it kind of wasn't, but it may as well have been.
Right, close enough, right?
It really feels like, looking at these replays back, that moment almost said to GaRpY, right, all right, I got to start playing defensive because I can't let this, you know, trickle away. Yeah. But in doing so, dandaking just starts to collect everything on the map and just keeps it strong, you know, keeps the confidence with those Ghost Walks. And it's not every day you see a Nyx go that far down in a map and just keep their head in the game enough to bring it all the way back like that. It's so hard to do it.
But I think, yeah, to Wheat's point, it was from that point onwards, maybe it was a confidence, whatever it was, he didn't feel like he missed a rail. You know, the first 6 minutes, he was missing rails and then engaging as a Nyx and getting swept up in these combats because he wasn't connecting with his shots, right? But after then, he was hitting his rails. He then had full control. GaRpY was too trepidatious to try and close the gap, and he was just pushing and pushing and pushing, and the pressure was just too much for GaRpY in the game.
Yeah, it went from sort of, you could tell that Dan, he knew the shots that he needed to hit. He just wasn't quite hitting them. But yeah, I agree with you, Ketchup, on where the turning point of that one was. And what a way to kick off our first game here. I wasn't expecting. I thought we were going to go 3 at the very beginning of that one, but here we are. Congratulations to dandaking. He'll be moving on. GaRpY will have to fight then for his tournament life down in the lowers. But is that what you expected, Dan?
I think this is one of the closer ones for sure. I mean, you never really know what GaRpY's going to turn up to play, and I don't even think he played bad. I thought that's the thing, right? dandaking played well. I think map 1, there was definitely mistakes in his game from a timing perspective, but the way in which dandaking played with that momentum, kept on the front foot, and played really aggressively. Not a lot of players will bring it into a tournament like that. They might be a bit more reserved, and that would give GaRpY the breathing room. But dandaking knew what he had to do, and he kept the aggression strong, and he followed it up with the execution. So he really did deserve that victory.
Well, we'll wonder if that's going to set the tone for the entire tournament, see how things are going to play out. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, it's going to be Dramus taking on RMV here for day 1 of the Quake World Championships. Don't go away. We'll be right back.